Hello! In this video I'll show you new ways and super effective exercises to master the so-called circular breathing. This is a playing technique that allows you to maintain a relatively constant tone on almost all wind instruments, which doesn't break off even when you inhale through your nose. This technique not only works on the didgeridoo, but on all brass and woodwind instruments, on the harmonica, and on many flutes. And even beatboxers use it. This is the first of 3 videos in which you will discover many new things and become more diverse, aware and confident in the use of circular breathing. For example, you will learn why the tongue is about 10 times more effective than the cheeks in circular breathing. My name is Mark Miete. I've been a professional didgeridoo player and teacher since the early 1990s and live in Berlin. After almost 30 years of teaching thousands of students to play the didgeridoo, I want to share my experience with you here. Maybe you've watched other videos or taken lessons and still can't get it right. Or you already manage it to some extent, but somehow it doesn't run smoothly. For example, the sound keeps dropping out or you can't get the air right. Maybe you'd like to be able to play those wobble-like sounds that are so popular on the didgeridoo. Or you are frustrated that others play much faster than you. It is my intention to clarify misunderstandings around this actually very simple technique and to accompany you as far as possible in it. So, what is it all about? Circular breathing is as simple as making a sound some make as casual gesture. Check if maybe you can breathe in and out at the same time right now. Now what happens? If you also make this popping sound, then your tongue has just pushed air out and moved your lips with it. The tip of your tongue is down. Make sure you don't push out from your belly. If you did, it would sound different like this. But with the tongue. Another way you can get a feel for this new tongue movement is this. You put your lips in a whistling position, such as U, and push the air with your tongue, making a whistling sound. The hoopoe bird makes these sounds. If I tap my cheek with my finger at the right moment, this water drop sound is created. We'll take a closer look at these sounds in a moment. Again, make sure you're not just blowing from your belly. but with the tongue. If you can't do both, I'm going to show you a series of exercises that everyone has managed to do. First, take a good sip of water in your mouth. Take a short break, get a glass of water, and a container with which you can collect the water again, or go straight into the shower. Water is denser than air and therefore much easier to perceive at first. With the water, we now do 3 exercises. The first exercise is teeth rinsing, just like after brushing your teeth. You can use your cheeks to push the water to the right and left, but we don't need that here. What we want is to push the water through the teeth with the tongue and pull it back. Always back and forth, so that the cheeks keep puffing up. Feel free to use your hand to feel the lowest part of the tongue, here above the larynx, and the base of the tongue. Yeah, can you feel the movement? Good. In a moment we will need the forward movement of the tongue for circular breathing. The second exercise, push the water with your tongue slowly, with a powerful steam. Put one hand on your belly and make sure that it is not pushing, but check that you are really pushing with the tongue. It drools a bit, but that's part of it. As you can see, I push out 100 milliliters with my tongue only. This length, this width, and about this height. With the cheeks together, it's 110 milliliters for me, so only 5 milliliters in each cheek. So here the tongue has 10 times as much volume available as the cheeks. The cheeks may seem very voluminous to you, but look at how thick the cheeks wall is on me, and I'm relatively slim. It's about 1 centimeter, so there's not much space left for air. On most wind instruments, however, we lose considerably more air, so that such a long tongue push is hardly possible. Rather, we give short tongue pushes or thrusts and breathe in quickly. With the third exercise, you can experience how many such short pushes you can manage with a single water load. So push the water out in several stages, inhaling briefly through the nose at the same moment each time. Of course, when you can't fit more air in your lungs, exhale through your nose to make room to breathe in again. Now do these 3 exercises without water. Maybe it will help you if you imagine you have whipped cream or foam in your mouth. For all 3 exercises, I invite you to relax and see if you can breathe in and out through your nose already. The first exercise was rinsing the teeth. If you shape your lips as a U, you can make this hoopoe whistling sound. Exactly this sound we find later on the didgeridoo as the typical circular breathing sound, which sounds wok or wah-like. Second, a long tongue push with pointed lips. Yeah. Making this funny farting sound. How long do you make it with one air charge? For me it's more or less 23-24 seconds with the tongue alone and only 2 seconds longer with the cheeks. Until you would push out the spit at the end. Beat this. The third exercise without water, the tongue pushes, is again this plopping sound which I have shown you at the very beginning. Again we find this sound on the ditch. But more about that in a moment. So far so good. Now how do we implement this on our instrument? The principle is easy to understand and learn. The tongue pushes air out while you inhale through the nose, and the cheeks can support it. With a little practice, circular breathing happens on its own, which is why many people don't even realize that they are using their tongue at all. The cheeks alone are also capable of pushing some air out. As I said, for me it's 10 milliliters. Maybe just enough to inhale. However, the tongue is also engaged when you use the cheeks, at least by closing off the mouth. As in the word tongue, with the it closes off the top of the palate. Mostly, however, the tongue unconsciously pushes air out as well. Without tongue closure, this would be a movement from A to E. Or with tongue closure, with the tongue, you cannot only push slower, longer and more controlled than with the cheeks, you can also move it much faster. My personal record is 300 breaths per minute. Of course I don't breathe every time, because at some point the lungs are full and then I have to deflate again. But that's how many tongue pushes I do per minute. If I leave out the breathing, that goes up again to 360, 370. I show you that in a bit. The metronome is set at 75. For movements per beat is 300. Because my metronome doesn't go to 300. Beat this. You see what is possible with the tongue alone, but back to the beginnings. If you want to apply these exercises to your instrument, the first thing is that you are able to hold a stable tone at all. There's very good information on the internet for each instrument. With the didgeridoo, it is important that the lips don't do too much, like but flutter evenly and loosely. It is equally important that they are reasonably tightened without pressing them together. To practice a good embouchure, I like to use harmonics with vowels. There are good exercises for this as well. I'll share some of my personal tips with you in another video. In the description I have linked my tutorial with audio examples. For implementing the tongue push on the didgeridoo, I recommend two ways, both of which lead to the same goal and complement each other well. First, the breathing approach, and second, the sound approach. In the breath approach, the breathing comes first, and that the sound doesn't interrupt. So the sound quality doesn't matter for now. You're even intentionally squeezing the air out here with two tight lips and a farty tone while inhaling through your nose. Then you exhale again with loose lips and drone over a soft ngo. The like we had in tongue. So you have 1, inhale and tongue push, and 2, exhale and drone. To make it easier for you in the beginning, you can use your cheeks. This way you have a little more air in your mouth and can relax your lips more easily. And even if you just leave the cheeks open, it helps. Later, leave the cheeks out completely and focus entirely on the tongue. If you forgot how to do it, and instead of pushing with your tongue, you push from your belly, keep going back to your starting point, the plopping. Ploppen. Take good care of yourself here, and if you start hyperventilating, take break. If you find the transition from tongue push and inhalation to the drone difficult, I have another tip for you. Make a really long tongue push and inhale only very briefly in the middle. So you push with your tongue longer than you inhale. This gives you more time to put the tongue back down after the tongue push and switch to the push from the lungs. On the didgeridoo, especially if you want to hit the drone, you have to play it faster though, and you can practice the wave for that. In doing so, you consequently omit all hard consonants and pay attention to continuity. That would be you, 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 you. Even faster, it will be yo, 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 yo. Find a tempo at which you can breathe in comfortably but briefly. Now all you really need to do is to release the tension in your lips, as I just did, to move from the fart sound to the fundamental drone. That was a 2 quarters, so 2 beats per measure. Now play it as 3 quarters, as a waltz.
Yo, 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 yo.
Or as 4 quarters, that would be
yo, 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 yo.
In the sound approach, the breathing doesn't matter at first, and you play a clear basic tone with distinct tongue push sounds for it. These sounds can be very different. Depending on how hard you push with your tongue, you will hear only the basic tone, a discrete wow, wok, wok, or it quacks or wobbles downright. All of these terms are just onomatopoeic descriptions of the sounds created by the tongue or cheek thrust anyway. Don't let this confuse you. Before I give you some exercises, I'll play you some variations so that you can hear these bell-like sounds in your playing. Sometimes very soft and barely audible, sometimes strong, sometimes with cheeks, in several stages, or even combined with overblown sounds. Now for the exercise. First play your drone with the tongue position of an O, so the tongue far back. Do you remember the hoopoe bird? Now make several of these tongue pushes in addition to the push from the lungs, going back to the drone via a whispered soft G. Zurück zum Grundton. And remember, don't push from the belly. So don't do. If you find the tongue push easier with the lip plopping, first start without the ditch, keep plopping, go to the mouthpiece. Now relax your lips enough to find the root note. What we are doing here is an open tongue push. That is, the tongue does not go into a and closes, but it stays away from the palate. That is why it's hardly possible to breathe on it. Alternating with the drone, that would be either or vice versa.
Go, 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 go.
Another way to discover the tongue push sound is by moving the tongue from the O far back to the E in front. If you do this with a flat tongue, overtones are produced. But if you steepen the tongue just a bit, you'll also hear this wa-like sound. Now it's finally time to bring it all together. So you match the inhalation through the nose and the tongue push sound with the loose drone and alternate that with the exhalation on a longer drone. When we plop, we usually land our tongue on our teeth, cutting off the airflow. A pause is created. Also with
Go, go.
we have another little thing that makes it very difficult to inhale at the same time. This is an open tongue push, as I just explained, which is why we can make this sound at the same time as we exhale from our belly. In order for it to go really smoothly and for us to be able to inhale comfortably, we need to close the back of the mouth with the tongue towards the throat, and the tongue push should end in the middle. For this we used the already mentioned as with the word breathing. So the tongue pushes during the like a piston in the cylinder. And of course this works better when the cylinder is closed. When it's open, the air pushes past. It's important that you integrate breathing into the rhythm from the very beginning. So I'm going to give you a series of rhythms where the inhalation sits in different places. On the first one, you breathe on the fourth beat. These are little German mnemonic phrases at the same time.
Yucke da da. Yucke da da. Yucke da da.
We also have a at the name Angela, which we take for a small rhythm.
Go, Angela.
On the first syllable of Angela, the tongue push happens, and you breathe in on the two.
Go, Angela, go, Gela.
Maybe one of the following rhythms will be easier for you. With the word hunger, but as if a Frenchman would say it without the H.
Go, 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 go. Go, go, go.
with the word angel. Der Engel da, der Engel da. And we're breathing on the two. Der Engel da. Or as a waltz with the word Angel. Angel dir, Angel dir. There you breathe on the one. Angel dir. Or Berlin style with Anke and a harder K. Dit da Anke, dit, that one Anke. Dit da, ge, dit da, ge, dit da, ge, dit da. Basically, I've given you everything you need to learn circular breathing or to become more aware of what you are doing. If things aren't going quite right yet, give yourself time. Mostly it helps to let things go for a while. Dive into rhythms, lose yourself in the sound, and let your instrument carry you away. So don't be afraid to put practicing aside for a while, because that's usually when the sound doesn't break away. But I have one last tip for you. The inhalation may be easier for you if you strengthen or lengthen the exhalation phase. I explain why this can work better in my second video. You can use this rhythm, for example. Go, 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 Angela. Go, 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 Angela. Last but not least, I would like to dispel two myths: jaw breathing and throat breathing. An upward jaw movement can be helpful for the feeling because the tongue is attached to the jaw. But the jaw alone pushes out zero, nothing, nada of air. Otherwise, we would lose food every time we chew. Rather, the jaw washes out the sound if you open or close it too much. Or even biting on each other. Some also believe that the throat has something to do with circular breathing. It is certainly a matter of definition where the tongue ends, back in the throat, and where the throat begins. In you can call the back part of the tongue to the trachea the throat, and the lowest part of the tongue ends at the front of the throat, here at the larynx. That can give the impression that the throat has something to do with it. Some, however, try hard to push air out of the throat while inhaling. And unfortunately, that can't work. Perhaps it helps to consider that you cannot inhale and exhale through the trachea at the same time, but you can see or feel the tongue push in the throat. In the second part of my course, you can learn how to get air on your own with the diaphragm support and the passive inhalation. I will also show you how the bounce breath can give your playing a lot more power. In the third part, you will also learn how to play faster with the breath sounds and how to create the so-called wobble sounds. I truly hope you enjoyed it and above all it helped you to move forward. I would also be happy to accompany you individually, live or in online lessons. If you want to support me, please leave a like or subscribe to my channel. Would be very happy about that. And see you soon in the second part.